at that. We actually have some numbers for Concord on the PlayStation side. That's kind of crazy. Well, it's kind of crazy for Firewalk Studios because it's not very good at all, okay? All of that cope that they could have run of, yeah, the numbers, they aren't great on Steam, but, you know, we're really cleaning up over on PlayStation. Spoilers, they ain't doing that either. Concord open beta. Okay, so this is the one that was free to everybody. Just simply required the download space on your PS5 to go ahead and enjoy this Overwatch ripoff that isn't really all that much like Overwatch. But Concord open beta player count declined by 8%. From the time where you had the pre-order, okay, you had to slap down $40 for this garbage, okay, and then you could get a code for yourself and code for 4 friends. They couldn't even come back when there was a bigger player base. Theoretically, the next week, you couldn't entice people who hadn't already been pot committed on this to run it back for another weekend. Yo, this shit, you thought this shit was dead? You didn't realize how dead it was, okay? This is Joe Biden levels of reanimation, okay? New report claims that Firewalk Studios Concord Open Beta had 8% less players than its early access beta on PlayStation. Oof. Keys Ellers Stevenson at True Trophies reports that the open beta, which ran from July 18th to the 21st, had 8% less players than the much more restrictive early access beta that ran from the 12th to the 14th. Firewalk Studios initially limited the early access beta to those who pre-ordered the game, however, it opened it up to the PlayStation Plus subscribers. Nevertheless, the open beta was available to all PlayStation 5 and PC players. Stevenson writes, using a gameplay data sample from over 3.1 million active PSN accounts, courtesy of the partnership, with Game Insights. Okay, cool. So these are, just about as accurate of numbers as we can possibly get. We can see that Concord has 8.1% fewer players in the second open beta than the early access beta. Oof. In our PlayStation chart, that ranks the top 40 most popular games every week. Concord ranked at 29th position both weeks. Oh, number 29 for a free beta. For free! This report comes in the wake of the Steam database data, showing the peak concurrent players for the game, and Steam hit 2,388 players on July 18th when the open beta went live. At the end of the open beta, the game was only hitting a peak of 1,117 players. Oof. The game's early access beta only hit a peak concurrent player base of 1,124. That means the player base actually increased by 112%. However, sub 2,500 peak concurrent players is not good for a free open beta for a game that will cost $40 when it goes on sale. Well, and it's going to be going on sale a lot quicker than that, a month from now on August 23rd. Yeah, that's your last beta. I would imagine, man, there's going to be some internal conversations, okay, between Sony and Firewalk Studios moving forward to what in the blue hell are we going to do about this, okay? There is clearly little interest in this game, given people did not even choose to play it, despite it being free. On top of that, those who played the game, were not impressed with the game, likely driven interest to the game down even further. Yeah, all the reviews that I heard was anywhere from, fine, not really enticed to pay $40 for it, fine, but it's all right, to characters suck, it relies on you liking these characters, and they're written like ass and the gameplay is trash. So even mediocre, like a 4 out of 10 praise, that's about the high end. That's the high water mark on this stuff. So color me surprised, the creatives behind this stuff are some of the most insane people I've read about in the gaming industry, and I'm not being hyperbolic, okay? Concord developer demanded coworkers refer to her as Professor, pushed extreme politics, and demanded her unvaccinated colleagues be fired. What a treat. Who could have possibly seen that wasn't a workplace that fostered the best of ideas? A new report claims that one of the developers at Firewalk Studios' upcoming game Concord demanded her coworkers refer to her as Professor. By the way, she doesn't have a PhD, okay? But if she had one of those, maybe she'd be a little less uptight, a pretty huge dick. She pushed extreme politics and demanded that her unvaccinated colleagues be fired. Color me surprised by any of those claims, especially when you have created such awesome characters like Sindel and a deep fryer. This new report comes from YouTuber Smash JT, and an anonymous source. Smash JT posted on X Firewalk Studios. This studio behind impending Concord flop has serious internal issues. One of their devs, Lisa Brown, aka Wordle, comes out as non-binary and forces everyone at the company to call her professor, so she identifies as professor/doctor. She would regularly have meetings with cheesy phrases like teaching/learning with the professor. I want to die. She pushed extreme politics, hated guns, and wanted unvaccinated staff fired. Hated guns, and you're working on a hero shooter. Okay, Smash JG added, this is just a part of why Concord is such a delusional mess. Yeah, exactly. It would be as stupid as, like, saying, I don't know, like a creative behind, like, say, let's just throw this out, a Star Wars show. Had never seen an episode, a minute of Star Wars before. Who would be dumb enough to do that? Just awaiting confirmation before we go public with other stuff. Found out a lot more about the studio. Oh, yeah, we certainly have. Speaking specifically to Brown demanding that she be called the professor, Smash JT said, the source was telling me that if people would not want to refer to her as it or didn't feel comfortable with it, then their job would be in jeopardy. Holy man. Meaning that this person had their pronouns pushed to the point of calling them something that they had not earned before. They didn't have any degrees or accomplishments to be called professor. They decided one day they woke up saying, I'm a professor now and people should start calling me that. Yeah, exactly. Now, I kind of made this point, and I guess this ends up, just really confirming this stuff, right? With all of the stuff that we're hearing right now from this bundle of joy, this ray of sunshine. Remember how there was a Home Depot employee that ended up getting fired after their advocation that somebody else take a shot at President Donald Trump? If somebody's going to be so vocal about pushing those politics, it is highly likely it doesn't take a professor to come to the conclusion that, yeah, they were probably making their coworkers' lives a living hell. I would imagine if we combed Twitter profile, Wordle, as it were, spoilers, that's actually been put into protected mode, so you can't go through any of that stuff, you would see further left-wing politics, crazier left-wing politics. Hell, I would even say around the time of July 13th, outright calls for violence. Would I be shocked to see any of that stuff? Absolutely not. Smash JT continued. Here's where it gets crazy. Here's where it gets crazy. Smash. I think you're covering the lead here, brother. This change, according to the source, had led to a company-wide enforcement on adjustments in addressing and interactions, meaning that people were required to address people how they demanded to be spoken to. Oh, great. Yeah. Remember, guys, the LGBTQ plus community, it just wants to love who they want to love. They just want to be married to who they want to marry, and it'll never get to a point in time where they're just going to be forcing language upon you. No, of course not. And meeting with this Lisa Brown developer, they had these scrums together at the office that would be titled really weird things like meeting with a professor, teaching and learning with the professor, which, as the source had reported to me, were not well received by the staff there universally. Wow. This and so many other things are really running in close contention with A44, the studio behind Flintlock, the Siege of Dawn, where you had one activist come in and completely ruin the project because at some point in time, right, like a hero shooter, an Overwatch-esque game could have been hyper successful, okay? Could have rejuvenated that dying genre because, as you can see with Overwatch, they're literally throwing everything at the wall by basically becoming Overwatch 1 again. There is need for innovation. It's just innovation in the form of forced pronouns developed by the professor. That ain't it, pal. Like many of the people at Firewalk Studios felt uncomfortable around this person, but also felt like they'd be retaliated against if they did, or if they tried to speak up and say anything, because the overwhelming architecture of the company, especially when it comes to HR, was a very left-leaning. What? A Sony first-person studio being incredibly left-leaning? I'm shocked, meaning that it was very sympathetic to pronoun bias and how people are addressed and exactly how you need to report to people. If you don't give them the respect, then you're the person in the wrong. Yes, if you don't indulge in mental illness, you're the problem. This is why society is in the place that it is right now. Demanding individuals use preferred pronouns might seem innocuous and even appear to be an innocent way of signaling love and acceptance to a person, says Bishop Burnage. Okay, catechist on a human person and gender ideology. In reality, however, it presents a profound crisis. We can never say something contrary to what we know to be true. To use names and pronouns that contradict the person's God-given identity is to speak falsely. Oh, yeah, exactly. And that just harkens back to stuff that, hell, Dr. Jordan Peterson was talking about, an actual professor way back in the early days of all this stuff, okay? Because the moment that you control the language and what words mean is the moment that you start to control the minds. Right, to speak the truth adheres in the person and cannot be taken away by any human institution. Attempts of the state, corporation, or employers, to compel such language, particularly by threats of legal action or job loss, are unjust. You must love the truth, and the truth must be accurately conveyed by our words. So yeah, exactly. I believe that to be 100% true. It's just, there's a way to convince me of the opposite opinion, okay? Smash JT detailed, Lisa also was someone who advocated for firing people that refuse to get vaccinated. Oh, okay, so force other people to do stuff, not just in the realm of word crimes, but in also human experimentation. But as Smash points out here, listen how authoritative this type of personality is when they demand to be addressed in a certain way. They demand people's respect when they wake up and feel like they're non-binary one day and have to be addressed as professor, work on a game that has guns, don't like guns, but also want people in the office that aren't vaccinated to the point of complaining about them, wanting to get them fired because of it. This is just one of the employees in a high up position at a company making this a game. Yeah, exactly. Do everything that I want. It's like in regards to language and your medical choices. What does that have to do with video games? Video games? But it's ideologues that create games with characters that look like this, okay? That have pronouns in their bio in the game, that have fewer than 2,500 people checking the free version of the game. This game is gonna be an abysmal flop, but thankfully, the more that we find out about Firewalk Studios, couldn't happen to nicer people. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.